Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, imagine walking alone in the depth of the night. The world around you is silent, the stars above dim, and the road ahead invisible. You take one step, then another, but every direction feels uncertain, every path feels lost. And then suddenly, a light appears. Not just any light, but one that pierces through the darkness, guiding you forward, calming your fears, and revealing the truth of where you stand and where you must go. That light, my dear listeners, is the light of the Qur'an. It is not merely a book of words, ink and pages. It is a divine beacon, a living miracle that continues to illuminate hearts long after the Prophet Muhammad left this world. It is the eternal voice of Allah, speaking to humanity, calling us from confusion to clarity, from despair to hope, from darkness to light. The power of divine illumination. The Qur'an is not just a scripture to be recited, it is a revelation to be lived. It was revealed at a time when the world was drowning in ignorance, when injustice was the law, when the weak were oppressed, when the hearts of men were veiled by arrogance and greed. And yet, through the voice of one man, through the tongue of the prophet, came verses that tore through the clouds of ignorance and filled the skies of Arabia with a brilliance never seen before. The Qur'an did not just change laws, it changed souls. It did not merely guide the Arabs, it transformed the human condition. A nation of tribes became a civilization of justice. A people of superstition became a people of knowledge. The Qur'an turned shepherds into scholars, merchants into missionaries, and a once forgotten desert into the heart of the world's enlightenment. And that, my dear friends, is not a story of the past. The Qur'an continues to perform the same miracle today. If only we open our hearts to its light, a light that never fades. We live in an age of astonishing technology, of glowing screens and endless information. Yet, ironically, never before has humanity been so spiritually lost. We know how to reach the moon, yet we cannot find peace in our homes. We speak across oceans, yet we struggle to speak with our own hearts. We have light in our hands, but darkness in our souls. And in this darkness, the Qur'an stands unchanging, an eternal flame that neither time nor technology can extinguish. Its words reach across centuries, whispering softly but powerfully, Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. Ashura and Nur 24:35. This verse is not a metaphor alone, it is a promise. For every soul that seeks meaning, for every heart that feels lost, Allah offers light. The Qur'an is that light, the guiding lamp that reveals who we are and who we are meant to be. The Qur'an, a mirror for the soul. When one reads the Qur'an with sincerity, it becomes a mirror reflecting the true state of one's soul. It does not flatter, nor does it deceive. It confronts you gently, reminding you of your weaknesses, your duties, your purpose. It heals wounds a medicine cannot see. It soothes grief that words cannot express. Have you ever felt broken truly by life trials? Then open the Qur'an, and you will find verses that seem to have been written just for you. Indeed, with hardship comes ease. Ashura Shar 94-6, when you fear the future, and whoever relies upon Allah, then he is sufficient. At Talaq 65:3, when you feel unseen, unheard, forgotten, reminds you, and he is with you wherever you are. Says Shur al-Hated 5T734, isn't that incredible? A book revealed 400 years ago speaks with such timeless that it feels as though it was revealed this morning to you. That is not coincidence. That is divine precision. That is light that does not dim with centuries. The Qur'an and transformation. Let me share with you a story, one that many of us may relate to. A man once came to an Islamic scholar in tears. He said, I have everything, wealth, comfort, status, but my heart is empty. I feel lost. The scholar handed him a Qur'an and said, read it, not for information, but for transformation. Days later, the man returned, his eyes glowing. I read it, he said, and for the first time in years, I felt as though Allah was talking to me. That, dear brothers and sisters, is the miracle of the Qur'an. You do not merely read it, it reads you. You do not simply understand it, it understands you. You do not approach it for light. It becomes your light. The Qur'an is far more than a sacred book to be recited in times of need or during moments of ritual devotion. It is a living guide, a timeless map designed to lead humanity through the maze of existence, from confusion to clarity, from the illusions of worldly gain to the serenity of divine purpose. When Allah revealed the Qur'an, it was not only to enlighten the hearts of 7th century Arabia, but to illuminate the journey of every soul that would ever walk upon this earth. Its guidance is not bound by culture, race, or generation. It speaks directly to the human condition, to the eternal struggle between right and wrong, between fleeting pleasure and lasting peace. To live by the Qur'an is to view life through the lens of divine wisdom. Every verse holds a principle that can shape our moral compass. It teaches that faith is not a passive feeling, but an active force that must penetrate every corner of our daily lives, in how we speak, how we earn, how we treat others, and how we govern ourselves when no one is watching. The Qur'an reminds us that the measure of a person is not in status or title, but in righteousness, humility, and sincerity. When it declares, indeed, the most honored of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you, it shatters every illusion of superiority built by pride or privilege. It calls us back to equality, justice, and mercy, the essence of human dignity. In the modern world, where values shift like sand in the wind and truth often bends under the weight of convenience, the Qur'an remains unchanging. It offers a moral anchor in a sea of uncertainty. It teaches integrity when deception becomes normal, gratitude when greed dominates, patience when haste defines our days, and forgiveness when revenge seems justified. It molds the character of the believer until goodness becomes a natural reflex, not an effort. Its words breathe a life in ethics, turning moral ideals into daily habits. When one allows the Qur'an to guide them, decisions begin to transform. A businessman who reads its verses will not cheat or exploit, for he knows that wealth earned dishonestly carries no blessing. A leader who holds its light in his heart will rule with justice, or knowing that leadership is not a privilege but a trust. A family guided by the Qur'an will not be torn apart by selfishness, for love becomes worship and patience becomes strength. The Qur'an, when truly followed, builds societies of compassion and individuals of character. Consider the world around us, filled with noise, ambition, and endless competition. The Qur'an teaches calm amid chaos. It whispers that true success is not measured by what you own, but by the peace within your soul. It reminds us that this life is but a bridge, passage to something eternal. When the believer understands this, worldly troubles lose their power. Failures no longer crush the spirit because every setback becomes a test of faith, every delay a hidden mercy. The Qur'an becomes the inner compass, realigning us with what truly matters when the world tries to pull us in 1,000 directions. Its guidance is also deeply practical. It teaches the believer to balance the spiritual and the material, to live in the world without letting the world live in the heart. It urges kindness to parents, generosity to the poor, honesty in promises, and fairness in dealings. It commands that no soul be wronged and no right be ignored. Even the smallest action, a smile, a word of comfort, an act of charity, are seen by Allah and multiplied in reward. When this understanding takes root, if itself becomes an act of worship, the workplace becomes a place of honesty, the marketplace a test of fairness, and the home a sanctuary of mercy. Yet the Qur'an's guidance is not enforced through fear alone, it persuades through love. It appeals to the intellect, inviting reflection. Over and over it asks, will you not think? Will you not reason? This is not a book that demands blind obedience, but one that awakens awareness. It challenges us to seek truth not through emotion alone, but through contemplation of the world around us, the skies, the seasons, the human heart. Every sign in creation back to the Creator, and the Qur'an teaches us how to read those signs. In doing so, it bridges the gap between science and faith, between observation and revelation, showing that knowledge and belief are not enemies but companions on the road to understanding. When the heart becomes guided by the Qur'an, it gains an inner stability that nothing external can shake. The believer walks with purpose because they know their direction. The temptations of the world lose their glitter, and even pain becomes meaningful. The Qur'an does not promise a life free of struggle. Instead, it gives meaning to struggle. It assures us that patience in hardship is not weakness but strength, and that every trial draws the believer closer to Allah. This awareness turns ordinary lives into extraordinary journeys of faith. Imagine a community where every member lives by Quranic values, where justice prevails, compassion is the norm, and truth is honored above all. Such a society becomes radiant with divine light. It is not utopian fantasy. It is the legacy of the early Muslims who breathed the Qur'an into their lives. They built civilizations not by sword or wealth, but by the strength of moral conviction. The same transformation awaits any people who choose to be guided by this light again. Ultimately, the guidance of the Qur'an is not about memorizing verses or perfecting recitation alone. It is about embodying its message. It is about allowing its wisdom to flow through our thoughts, our words, our actions. When one walks by its guidance, life itself becomes illuminated. Every step becomes purposeful, every lesson, and every moment a chance to draw nearer to Allah. The Qur'an does not just tell us what to do, it teaches us how to be patient, just humble, courageous, and kind. To live under the light of the Qur'an is to walk a path where confusion gives way to clarity and despair melts into hope. It is to move through life with certainty that every verse, every command, every story, and every reminder is a divine sign, shaping us into better humans, stronger believers, and brighter lights for others. When the Qur'an guides a heart, that heart becomes a source of guidance for the world around it. A living reflection of divine truth, carrying within it the same light that once turned deserts into gardens and ignorance into wisdom. There are moments in life when the heart grows heavy, when silence feels louder than words, and when the world seems to dim no matter how bright the sun may shine. In those moments when human comfort falls short and reason alone cannot mend the soul, the Qur'an enters as a gentle, healing light, not to erase our pain, but to give it meaning. It is the light that reaches the corners of the heart untouched by anything else, the kind of light that does not flicker, even when the winds of hardship blow fiercely. The Qur'an speaks not only to the mind, but to the very core of the human spirit. It understands the unspoken, the hidden tremors of the heart, the fears we cannot confess, and the longings we cannot name. When a believer opens its pages with sincerity, they do not simply read words. They encounter divine presence. Every verse feels a sent at that exact moment for that exact soul. It whispers to the broken, consoles the weary, and lifts those bowed down by the weight of sorrow. There is no one too deep, no grief too private that the Qur'an cannot soothe thee. In a world that often numbs the heart with endless distractions, the Qur'an awakens it. It calls us to remember that the true life of a human being is not measured by the pulse of the body, but by the pulse of the soul. A heart without remembrance of Allah may still beat, but it is hollow, wandering through life without true purpose. The Qur'an revives that heart by reconnecting it to its creator, reminding it of where it came from, why it exists, and where it is destined to return. It is like rain upon dry soul, bringing forth new life, new hope, and new strength. Every verse of the Qur'an carries a rhythm that speaks to emotion as much as to intellect. The believer who listens with humility finds tears flowing without command, as though the heart recognizes a truth that words cannot fully express. When it declares, "Verily, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest," it is not a poetic promise. It is a reality experienced by every soul that surrenders burdens before the one who never tires of listening. The Qur'an becomes the conversation that never ends, the comfort that never fades, and the friend that never leaves. When the world becomes loud with fear and anxiety, the Qur'an becomes a sanctuary of calm. Its verses remind us that every trial carries within it divine wisdom, that behind every delay lies mercy, and that even in apparent loss, there is hidden gain. It teaches that Allah is closer to us than our own jugular vein, that He sees our tears before they fall, and that He responds to every call, sometimes not with what we want, but always with what we need. This understanding transforms despair into patience and anxiety into trust. It replaces the darkness of uncertainty with the light of faith. The Qur'an also rekindles the forgotten capacity of the heart to love purely and deeply. In its stories, we learn compassion from the patience of Prophet Job, forgiveness from Prophet Joseph, faith from Maryam, and mercy from the Prophet Muhammad. Their stories are not distant tales, but mirrors of our own struggles. They teach us that faith does not mean the absence of pain, it means the presence of peace even within it. They remind us that hardship does not destroy a believer. It purifies them, polishes the heart until it reflects divine light more clearly. The light of the Qur'an is not an abstract glow. It manifests through transformation. A heart touched by it begins to see differently, not through the eyes of the world, but through the eyes of eternity. The believer learns to love what Allah loves and to let go of what distances them from Him. Material things lose their power to enslave, anger softens into forgiveness, arrogance melts into humility, and despair gives way to gratitude. The heart, once restless and rebellious, becomes serene, anchored by remembrance and guided by faith. This light also carries the power to unite hearts that the world tries to divide. When two believers recite the same verse, though oceans apart, they are connected by a shared love, the love of Allah's word. It is the same verse that comforted the oppressed, inspired the seeker, and softened the tyrant. Across generations, cultures, and languages, the Qur'an speaks one universal language of the heart. It dissolves barriers of time and distance, binding the hearts of believers with an invisible thread of divine connection. Sometimes the Qur'an enters a heart that had long resisted it. A single verse can pierce through years of neglect. A single recitation can awaken a soul long asleep. The Qur'an never gives up on a person's light, waits patiently at the door of every heart, knocking softly until it is welcomed in. And when it enters, it transforms the darkness of sin into the dawn of repentance. The sinner becomes the saint, the heedless becomes the humble, and the once lost traveler finds a path again. That is the miracle of divine mercy, the power to turn even brokenness into beauty. In moments of solitude, when the noise of the world fades and only silence remains, the believer who turns to the Qur'an finds that it speaks more tenderly than any human voice. Its words wrap around the heart like light wraps around dawn. Soft, steady, inevitable. It teaches that even when the world turns away, Allah remains. Even when all doors close, His mercy is open. Even when hearts break, His healing is near. Through the Qur'an, the believer learns not merely to survive pain, but to grow through it. Find in every hardship a hidden gift, and in every breath a reminder of divine love. The light of the Qur'an is the heart's greatest treasure, the illumination that reveals who we truly are when everything else fades away. It does not simply brighten our path, it brightens our very being. To carry it within is to carry hope that never dies, peace that never fades, and faith that never falters. It is the light that turns tears into prayer, fear into courage, loneliness into divine companionship. It is the voice that whispers gently, even in the darkest night, for indeed Naqsbi Allah is with you. My dear brothers and sisters, the Qur'an is not a book meant to rest on shelves or to be recited only on sacred nights. It is a living light meant to rest in our hearts and shine through our lives. Its purpose is not fulfilled when we memorize its words. Its purpose is fulfilled when we embody its message. The world today is filled with knowledge, but starved of wisdom, rich in technology, but poor in peace. And the cure for that emptiness lies within the very words that many of us have allowed to gather dust. The Qur'an calls us not only to read it, but to live it, to let it transform the way we think, the way we speak, the way we treat one another, and the way we see ourselves in relation to Allah. So let us make a promise, not to each other, but to our Creator, that we will no longer allow this light to remain hidden within pages. Let it shine through our honesty, through our compassion, through our patience, and through our justice. Let the rhythm of our lives reflect the rhythm of the current. Let our hearts beat with its remembrance and our tongues speak its truth. When anger tempts us, let a verse calm us. When sadness weighs us down, let a verse lift us. When confusion clouds our path, let a verse guide us. Let every home be a lamplit by the Qur'an where children grow up, children hearing its verses not as distant echoes but as daily nourishment. Let our communities rise again, not through power or wealth, but through hearts illuminated by revelation. Be the bearer of this light, carried into classrooms, workplaces, and conversations. Let it soften hardened hearts, heal broken ones, and remind the world that divine mercy still lives among us. And remember, the light of the Qur'an does not fade with time. It fades only when we turn away from it. But if even one heart turns back, one person reconnects, one family reforms, that light begins to spread again. Be that spark. Be that vessel through which a divine message touches another soul. So today, as you leave with these words, take this message within you. Do not walk in darkness when you hold the light. Open the Qur'an not just with your eyes, but with your soul. Read it not just for reward, but for rebirth. Live it until your life itself becomes a verse that testifies to the beauty, the mercy, and the eternal light of Allah's word. May we all be among those who are guided by its light, shaped by its wisdom, and embraced by its mercy in this world and in the next. Ameen.